There's a sedan parked in front of my shop since last Wednesday. It's a 2017 model, one of those cars owners buy because they promise good gas mileage and low emissions. The owner told me he'd noticed something worrying over the last 3 months. His car, which used to get about 600 kilometers on a full tank, was now barely getting 480. He'd been to 2 shops, and both had given it a complete checkup. The first one told him it was the air filter and replaced it. $50. The mileage didn't improve. The second one told him the spark plugs were old and replaced them. $120. The mileage remained the same. The third one told him the problem was the oxygen sensor and that he needed to replace it with a new one. $300 just for the part. He wasn't willing to spend any more money without knowing if it would actually work. He asked me if I could give him a definitive answer. What I found in the first 5 minutes I spent with his car left him speechless. Because the problem wasn't the air filter, it wasn't the spark plugs, it wasn't the oxygen sensor. The problem was a sensor that costs $4, that you can find at any auto parts store, and that you can clean in less than 5 minutes with a product that costs $9. But no mechanic had ever told him about that sensor because no mechanic had ever wanted to take the time to check it. It's easier to replace expensive parts and charge for them than to clean a $4 sensor and charge for the labor. And this sensor, when it's dirty, tells the car's computer that it needs more fuel than it actually does. And the car, obediently, injects more gas. And his money goes up the exhaust in the form of smoke that shouldn't be there. Stay with me, because by the end of this video you're going to know exactly where that sensor is in your car, how to clean it in 5 minutes, and how to save hundreds of dollars on gas every year. And your car is going to run like the day you bought it. Now before I show you the sensor that shops don't want you to clean, the $4 part that can save you hundreds in gas, I have to mention something. Everything I'm showing you today is just one chapter of a much larger file I've compiled over my years in the shop. I call it the Handyman's Handbook. It's 3 volumes of these simple diagnostics, systems for improving gas mileage without spending money on unnecessary parts, tricks for cleaning sensors without damaging them, methods for finding vacuum leaks that affect fuel economy, and repairs anyone can do in their garage to get better gas mileage. There's a special offer right now for those watching the video. You'll find the link in the description and a QR code in the top right corner of the screen. That's the rest of the hidden knowledge. But back to the sensor, because what I'm about to tell you is the game changer. Let's get down to business. The mass airflow sensor, or airflow sensor, is one of the most important components of your car's fuel injection system. It's located between the air filter and the intake hose leading to the engine. Its job is to measure the amount of air entering the engine and send that information to the car's brain, the engine control unit, ECU. With that information, the ECU calculates how much fuel it needs to inject to maintain the correct air-fuel mixture. If the sensor measures correctly, the ECU injects the right amount of fuel. If the sensor measures incorrectly, the ECU injects too much or too little fuel. And if it injects too much, your car uses more gas than it should. But here's the problem. The mass airflow sensor has a heated filament, which is like a very thin wire that heats up to a constant temperature. The air passing over this filament cools it. The sensor measures how much electrical current it needs to keep the filament at the correct temperature. The more air that passes over it, the more current it needs. And with that measurement, the ECU calculates the amount of air entering the engine. The problem is that the air filter doesn't trap all the dust. Some of the dust, especially the finer particles, passes through the filter and settles on the sensor's filament. The oil used in some air filters can also deposit on the filament. When dust and oil accumulate on the filament, the sensor doesn't measure correctly. The filament doesn't cool down as it should because the layer of dirt acts as an insulator. The sensor thinks less air is entering than it actually is, and the engine control unit, ECU, based on this incorrect information, injects less fuel than the engine needs. But wait, there's more. Most modern cars have a second sensor, the oxygen sensor, which measures the amount of oxygen in the exhaust. When the ECU detects too much oxygen in the exhaust because the mixture is lean, it corrects the error by injecting more fuel. The end result is that the car injects more fuel than necessary, and you spend more money on gas. And here's the trick that repair shops don't want you to know. Most mass airflow sensors aren't damaged. They're dirty, and dirt can be cleaned. You don't have to buy a new $300 sensor. You just have to clean the one that's already in your car with a special mass airflow sensor cleaner that costs $9 at any auto parts store, and the cleaning process takes 5 minutes. All you have to do is disconnect the sensor, spray the cleaner on the filament, wait for it to dry, and reconnect it. That's it. 5 minutes and $9, and your car will run like it has a new sensor. Let me tell you what happened with the customer's sedan. I opened the hood and located the mass airflow sensor. It's on the intake hose between the air filter and the engine. I unscrewed it with a small screwdriver. I disconnected the electrical connector. I took out the sensor and looked at the filament. It was covered with a layer of dust and black particles. It wasn't a clean metal filament. It was a filament that looked like dirty cotton. That sensor hadn't been cleaned in years, probably since it left the factory. I sprayed the cleaner onto the filament. The cleaner dissolves the dirt and grease without damaging the sensor. I waited 3 minutes for it to dry completely. I put the sensor back in place. I tightened the screws. I connected the electrical connector. I closed the hood. I told the customer to drive the car for a week and come back and tell me how it went. He came back the following week with a huge smile. He told me the car was performing just like it did when he bought it. He'd filled the tank, and after a week of normal driving, he was getting almost 600 kilometers per tank again. He couldn't believe a 5-minute cleaning had fixed a problem 3 other shops hadn't been able to solve. And he couldn't believe the total cost had been $9 compared to the nearly $500 he'd spent at the other shops with no results. That's the reality of the auto repair business. Big shops make money replacing parts. They don't make money cleaning sensors. Because if you can clean a sensor in 5 minutes for $9, you're not going to pay $300 for a new sensor, or $50 for an air filter that doesn't need changing, or $120 for spark plugs that aren't worn out. The shops aren't going to tell you the sensor can be cleaned because cleaning it isn't profitable for them. And the truth is, most mechanics don't even know how because they aren't taught how to clean sensors in mechanic school. They teach you how to diagnose with computers and how to replace parts. Cleaning sensors is a practical skill learned through experience. Now let me explain exactly how to identify if your mass airflow sensor is dirty and needs cleaning. There are 5 main signs that indicate the sensor is dirty. First sign, your fuel consumption has noticeably increased for no apparent reason. If you haven't changed your driving habits, if you haven't started carrying more weight, if you haven't changed your route and your car is using more gas, the mass airflow sensor is a prime suspect. I've seen cars go from getting 12 kilometers per liter to getting 8. And the cause is a dirty sensor. Second sign, the car shakes or jerks when idling or stopped at a traffic light. The car's computer is trying to compensate for the incorrect air-fuel mixture, and the engine runs erratically. The shaking is especially noticeable when the car is idling with the engine running. Third sign, the car has trouble accelerating when you press the gas pedal. The engine doesn't seem to respond as it should. There's a delay between pressing the gas pedal and the car accelerating. This is because the engine control unit, ECU, isn't calculating the correct amount of fuel and the fuel mixture isn't right for the power demand. Fourth sign, the check engine light comes on. In many cars, the ECU detects that the mass airflow sensor readings are outside the normal range and illuminates the warning light. The error code displayed on the code reader may be P0100, P0101, P0102, P0103, or P0104. All of these codes are related to problems with the mass airflow sensor. Fifth sign, the car's exhaust smells like gasoline. If the car is injecting more fuel than necessary, some of that fuel won't burn completely and will escape through the exhaust. This produces a characteristic smell of unburned gasoline. If you smell gasoline in the exhaust, especially when the engine is cold, it's a sign that the sensor may be dirty. If you have any of these signs, or several of them, the mass airflow sensor is one of the first things you should check. And the check is simple. Open the hood, locate the air filter, follow the intake hose that runs from the filter to the engine. Somewhere along that hose, usually just past the filter, you'll find a small cylindrical or rectangular component with an electrical connector. That's the mass airflow sensor. It may have 1 or 2 screws holding it in place. Carefully unscrew the screws. Disconnect the electrical connector. Carefully pull the sensor out. Don't touch the filament with your fingers because the oils from your skin can damage it. If the filament is visibly dirty, with dust or black particles, it's time to clean it. Purchase a mass airflow sensor cleaner at any auto parts store. The product is called MAF Sensor Cleaner. It costs between $8 and $12. Do not use any other type of cleaner. Do not use alcohol. Do not use brake cleaner. Do not use degreaser. These products can damage the sensor's filament. Only use the cleaner specifically designed for mass airflow sensors. Spray it onto the filament and the internal parts of the sensor. Make sure to cover all surfaces exposed to airflow. Let the cleaner work for a few seconds, then allow it to dry completely. Drying takes between 3 and 5 minutes. Do not use a cloth or rag to dry it, as this can leave lint or particles that can damage the sensor. Only let it air dry. Once the sensor is dry, put it back in place. Tighten the screws carefully. Connect the electrical connector. Make sure it's secure. Close the hood. Start the car and let it run for a few minutes so the computer can adjust to the new information from the clean sensor. If the check engine light was on, it might turn off on its own after a few driving cycles. If it doesn't turn off, you can clear the code with a code reader or simply disconnect the battery for a few seconds. But most of the time, the light goes off on its own after a couple of days of normal driving. Now, I want to clarify one important thing. Cleaning the mass airflow sensor isn't a solution for all fuel consumption problems. There are other things that can cause high fuel consumption. Tire pressure, for example. If the tires are underinflated, the car has to work harder to move, and that uses more gas. A very dirty air filter can also cause high fuel consumption because the engine isn't getting enough air, and the engine control unit, ECU, has to compensate by injecting more fuel. Worn spark plugs can cause misfires and increased fuel consumption. Dirty fuel injectors can spray the gasoline poorly, causing an inefficient mixture. And vacuum leaks in the intake hoses can cause the ECU to inject more fuel to compensate for the excess air entering through the leak. But the mass airflow sensor, MAF, is one of the most common causes and the easiest to fix. Best of all, it's a repair that requires no special tools, costs less than $10, and anyone can do it in their garage in under 10 minutes. I'm going to give you a maintenance plan for your MAF sensor so you'll never have problems again. Clean the sensor every time you change the air filter. If you change the air filter every 12,000 kilometers or once a year, clean the sensor at that time. It's a good practice because the new air filter will let in less dust, but the dust that has already passed through and settled on the sensor should be removed. Also, clean the sensor if you notice any of the signs I mentioned. The sensor gets dirty faster if you drive on dirt roads, in very dusty areas, or if you use high-flow air filters that allow more particles to pass through. 25 years ago, when I started in the shop, I knew nothing about this. I learned the hard way, replacing sensors that didn't need replacing, making incorrect diagnoses, and wasting my customers' money on parts that didn't fix the problem. Until I realized that most fuel economy problems aren't caused by damaged parts. They're caused by dirty parts, and dirt can be cleaned. All that information, all those tests, all those tricks for improving any car's fuel efficiency without spending hundreds of dollars on unnecessary parts, I've compiled them into a file I call the Handyman's Handbook. It's a 3-volume set containing complete maintenance guides for every system in your car, including the fuel system, sensors, spark plugs, injectors, and the tools you need to do everything in your garage. Each guide includes simple tests you can perform to diagnose problems without special tools and repairs anyone can do with minimal experience. If you found this video helpful, if you like the style, and if you want to learn more, I have a special offer for you. You'll find the link in the video description and a QR code in the upper right corner of the screen. That's full access to all 3 volumes of the compendium. It contains all the sensors I've mentioned today and many more. Complete diagnostic systems, so you'll never have to pay for unnecessary diagnostics again. This is the knowledge that has taken me 25 years to acquire, and I've decided to share it with those who want to save money on gas and keep their cars in top condition. You don't need to buy anything today. But if you want the complete knowledge, the kind that will save you hundreds of dollars on gas and thousands on unnecessary repairs, the link is there. And if not, that's fine too. With what I've shown you today, you already have enough to get started. Knowing where the sensor is, how to clean it, and how often to do it, puts you ahead of 80% of the drivers I know. Let me know in the comments if you've had any problems with gas mileage. Tell me how much your car uses per kilometer. If you cleaned the sensor, tell me how it went. Did you notice a difference? I read all the comments and reply whenever I can. If you have questions about a particular sensor or another fuel consumption issue, ask away and I'll give you my honest opinion. Until next time, take care of your cars, and don't pay for sensors that are just dirty.